Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Behind the Grind. So, a long time ago, back when Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 first released, I made a video criticizing the Eternal War or PvP game mode in the game itself. And well, all these months later, I kind of want to revisit the topic and see how the game mode has changed, or quite actually, has failed to change in all of the months leading up to the release of this video. And well, I'm just gonna go ahead and share my opinions with y'all because Eternal War is just one of those game modes that I personally really like to play. However, I do also see the failed potential that this game mode had, and well, it's just kind of disappointing to think about that in the long run, given how well this thing was crafted and well, how terribly it was treated, and how I think that Eternal War deserved better. Before we begin, I want to ask you to please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Also, let's take a moment to thank our channel members for supporting the Behind the Grind YouTube channel. Your help means a lot, and if you're interested in being a channel member, check out the information in the description down below. Thank you. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into why I think Eternal War deserves better. So my main criticisms with Eternal War ever since day one, and you guys can go ahead and fact check me, I've been critical of Eternal War ever since the game came out. If you want to go ahead and check out the first ever video I posted on my channel, has always been the fact that it is good, the gameplay is outstanding, I love playing this game mode, but the content is very minimum. And what I mean by that is that, well, 10 months later, we've only gotten one new PvP map, and yeah, that's pretty much everything that has come to PvP ever since then. We haven't had a single brand new game mode. We haven't had another map on top of the one we got. We have not gotten anything, no chaos customization, and let me just get this out of the way before I continue on. Yes, I do know that the brand new patch 10 update for September in 3 months will address some of the PvP customization, and not only that, but also introduce a brand new game mode and a brand new map to go alongside with it. However, none of this stuff really changes the way that basic Eternal War is played, and I'll explain why. So, in the new game mode, it's going to be Hellbrute Assault, right? And now this is going to have players compete against one another for control of a Hellbrute. Now, if you were to ask me personally, I think this is going to be like a free-for-all chaos mode in which one side of chaos opposes another side, if not free-for-all, and they're just going to fight for control over the Hellbrute. Now, what does this really change in basic PvP? Not much. Regular Eternal War just kind of stays the same. None of this stuff necessarily applies to the base rotation of Eternal War because that game mode is kind of a one and done thing. There's only one map to it, and so that's going to be in its own contained world, where the rest of PvP is just kind of going to exist alongside it. Now, obviously, you will be able to use some of the leaked Chaos Champions within regular PvP, and well, let me just say, it is a waste that we're not getting that stuff in PvE up until now. Maybe they will add that stuff later on, but anyways, yeah, there's just nothing really new coming to the base Eternal War. If you're going to go ahead and play Hellbrute Assault, you're just going to kind of stick to that, but like I said before, this doesn't really apply to base PvP. It's kind of sad to see a game mode that has just been so neglected over the course of 10 months, and well, it's pretty sad to see that anytime I bring up anything about PvP, or anytime I see anybody else bring up something about PvP, that the first response is always, oh, well, PvP was never the focus, to which I say, that's probably the dumbest excuse you could make. If PvP wasn't the focus in your eyes, that's fine. However, I do kind of see an issue with them including PvP if they just were going to neglect it the whole time. What was the point of PvP, quite honestly? Like, yeah, it has a very small dedicated fan base of players who engage in it all the time. Like myself, I love playing this game mode, but anyways, if it wasn't going to be something that they focused on, then actually, why the hell did they include it? I'd rather they would have focused 110% of their assets onto PvE or operations, or now siege mode, instead of having a PvP game mode separately. You know, Eternal War probably would have been one of those game modes in which you hire a completely separate developer to focus 110% of their assets into making PvP the best game mode that it could be. For example, take Call of Duty Ghosts release all those years back. Now, Infinity Ward did a lot of the work, however, the multiplayer was mostly handled by a separate developer named Raven Software. Now, if Space Marine 2 had something like this, that would have freed Saber Interactive to focus all of their assets and all of their employees on the development of PvE, whereas the other developer could have been working on PvP all of this time and adding things to the game. I think that this would have been a pretty good idea, and well, if that had been the action that they had taken at the beginning of the game's life cycle, well, then we would be playing a pretty developed and pretty fleshed out PvP experience. It's kind of disappointing to think of everything that PvP could have been. Like, we could have had some like big team battle inspired by Halo and all that kind of stuff, in which we take control of objectives and like large scale battles with a bunch of players, or something like Warzone from Halo 5, in which we play against a bunch of enemies on an opposing team with like actual players, and we also face off against some AI controlled minor enemies. Like, we could have been as a Chaos Astartes fighting against some guardsmen running around, or like some Tyranids on the map. And you know, I'm just kind of getting in my head with like the wishes that I wanted from something like this, but I really do feel like Eternal War was just such a wasted concept that really could have benefited from a little bit of originality when it came to this. Now, obviously, this really wasn't in the scope of the game whenever they first started developing it, but I probably would have been okay with waiting another year or two with this game if they just decided to completely dedicate themselves to something like that, because, well, it is kind of tough seeing all these games that kind of do this sort of thing a lot better than Space Marine 2, and well, when Space Marine 2 comes out, I get that it's not a game that just kind of tries to be like everything else, but it's 40K, man, and it's just a little disappointing to not have any of this stuff, you know? Like, if you feel the same way that I do, by all means, go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below. I can't help but feel like something here is missing, man, and like I said before, this is 40K. Warhammer 40K is such a large, expansive universe in which we have all these different factions fighting for control over things, and while when you play Eternal War, you just don't really get any of that. So if you resonate with this message and what I have to say, well, I want to go ahead and ask you to please consider dropping a comment in the comment section down below about what you would eventually like to see in Eternal War. And well, it's not necessarily useful to point out some stuff that like we wish we had, because, you know, it's wishful thinking, but it's still cool to read what you guys think that Eternal War could have been in the comment section down below. So with all that being said, yeah, I'm a little disappointed by Eternal War. This isn't even a negative video shitting on the game. You guys know that I do that a lot. This is just one of those videos that I'm making because I genuinely feel a little disappointed about Eternal War. And after 10 months, I kind of expected a little something more than just one map, because, you know, I do love playing this game, and it's just nothing crazy to really throw a fuss about. So, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel for more content. Also, if you wish to support the channel further, I'd encourage you to join the channel membership for exclusive perks. Thanks! This has been Behind the Grind, expressing my disappointment with Eternal War and Space Marine 2, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace!